Wrong place, wrong skin, he spat, shoving the teen against the wall before flicking his forehead with the championship ring. Silence fell like a guillotine. 500 spectators froze, breaths held captive. Champion Vance Reed towered over the young black competitor, his knuckles white around the prestigious Golden Dragon trophy. Devin Wilson, only 17, didn't flinch, not when the ring left its mark, not when whispers sliced through the tournament hall. "This arena belongs to those who honor true lineage," Vance growled, loud enough for the front rows to hear. "Not outsiders who disrespect tradition." Devin's pulse remained steady. His eyes, focused, ancient somehow, betrayed nothing but certainty. "I've waited 5 years for this moment, Mr. Reed." The teen's voice carried unexpected authority. "I wouldn't be anywhere else." Murmurs erupted. A judge shifted uncomfortably. No one intervened. Vance's nostrils flared. "Then I'll teach you a permanent lesson about respect." He jabbed a finger into Devin's chest, in front of everyone. Devin simply nodded, a response so measured it visibly unnerved the champion. The countdown to humiliation had begun. The Golden Dragon tournament represented the pinnacle of traditional martial arts competition in the country. Held annually in a converted historic theater with ornate dragon carvings adorning century-old columns, it attracted the most dedicated practitioners from across the nation. The air smelled of polished wood, ceremonial incense, and anticipation. Banners displaying the ancient creed in elegant calligraphy hung from the rafters. Honor, discipline, tradition. On the main floor, Vance Reed conducted his pre-tournament demonstration with the confidence of someone who had never known defeat. His movements were precise, powerful, flowing from one form to another with theatrical flourish that drew appreciative gasps from the audience. 5 championship medals gleamed on the display table behind him, physical testament to his dominance of the sport. "The true art," Vance announced to the crowd as he completed his final sequence, "requires lifelong dedication to the authentic traditions passed down through proper channels." He bowed deeply to the panel of 7 judges, all elderly masters except one middle-aged woman who had recently joined their ranks. "I am merely a vessel for preserving what our ancestors entrusted to us." The applause was thunderous. Several spectators rose to their feet. In sharp contrast, Devin's entrance through the side door caused barely a ripple. He carried a worn gym bag with a small community center logo, its strap frayed at the edges. No team surrounded him. No coach offered last-minute advice. He approached the registration table quietly, submitted his forms, and stepped back to wait. The tournament director frowned at his paperwork. "Wilson Community Center? I'm not familiar with this dojo." "It's not a dojo, sir. It's a community recreation center in East Side." Devin's voice remained respectful but unwavering. The director exchanged glances with an assistant. "East Side? That's the—" "I've met all qualifying requirements," Devin interjected softly. "Regional semifinals, 3rd place or higher." The director nodded reluctantly, stamping the form. A small crowd had gathered, watching the exchange with undisguised curiosity. As Devin turned to find his assigned preparation area, Vance Reed accidentally bumped into him, knocking his water bottle to the floor. The plastic container rolled, spilling its contents across the polished wood. "Careful where you step, boy," Vance whispered, barely moving his lips. "Wouldn't want to soil the competition floor." Devin knelt to retrieve the bottle, his expression unchanged. "My father always said the true measure of a martial artist is found in how they treat those they consider beneath them." Something flickered across Vance's face. Irritation, perhaps surprise, before his practiced smile returned. He walked away without responding, rejoining his entourage of students and admirers. From his bag, Devin removed a small, worn photograph. A young man in tournament guy, standing proudly with a trophy much smaller than Vance's current collection. The date stamped in the corner read 20 years earlier. Devin touched the image briefly before carefully returning it to an inner pocket. The preliminary bracket assignments were posted, drawing competitors to the display board. Murmurs of surprise rippled through the gathering. They've put the newcomer in the champions division? With that record? He'll be eliminated in the first round. Devin scanned the listings without reaction, noting his position in what was clearly the most difficult bracket. Every opponent was at least a second-degree black belt with multiple tournament placements. From the judges' table, one elderly judge, Master Haruto Tanaka, his face weathered by decades of practice, studied Devin with unexpected interest. His eyes narrowed, head tilting slightly as if trying to place a half-remembered face. "The bracket assignments are final," announced the tournament director, sensing the undercurrent of discussion. "Tradition dictates respect for the judges' decisions." Devin bowed slightly toward the announcement and moved to prepare for his first match. Devin's preliminary match began with little fanfare. His opponent, a stocky competitor with 3 regional titles to his name, approached with the confidence of someone expecting an easy victory. The referee signaled the start, and the crowd settled in for what they assumed would be a quick elimination. What followed defied expectations. Devin moved with fluid efficiency, neither flashy nor aggressive, yet somehow always just beyond his opponent's reach. His blocks connected with precision, his counters measured and controlled. Most noticeable was his economy of movement. No wasted energy, no unnecessary flourishes. When he scored points, they came from fundamental techniques executed with flawless timing. "Strange," muttered a coach from the sidelines. "His basics are perfect, but he's holding something back." By the match's midpoint, Devin led by a modest margin. His opponent's frustration manifested in increasingly aggressive attacks, which Devin continued to neutralize with the same calm efficiency. The crowd's attention shifted, whispers spreading as they recognized they were witnessing something unexpected. The match paused for a 1-minute break. Devin stood quietly, breathing controlled, while his opponent received animated coaching from his team. From across the room, Vance Reed watched, his expression hardening. Before the referee could resume the match, Vance approached the edge of the mat. "Stop!" he called out, his voice cutting through the ambient noise. "This is inappropriate." The referee turned, confused. "Excuse me, Champion Reed? As head of the tournament's traditions committee, I have the right to question improper participation." Vance stepped onto the competition mat, a breach of protocol that no one dared challenge. "This boy claims training from a community center, yet performs techniques from our protected lineage." The tournament director hurried over. "Champion Reed, the match is in progress. This is about the integrity of our art." Vance's voice projected to ensure the entire hall could hear. He turned to face Devin directly. "Where did you learn these forms? Who is your master?" Devin lowered his hands to his sides. "I trained at Wilson Community Center in Eastside." "A community center?" Vance's tone made the words sound like an accusation. "No recognized master? No lineage?" Murmurs rippled through the crowd. Some competitors exchanged uncomfortable glances, while others nodded in apparent agreement with Vance's concerns. "The center has a martial arts program," Devin replied evenly. "And who teaches this program?" Vance pressed, moving closer. "Various volunteers. My father initially, before he passed." Vance's smile was thin. "So, self-taught by a hobbyist. And you presume to enter the Golden Dragon?" He turned to address the audience. "This tournament honors centuries of properly transmitted knowledge, not weekend warriors playing at martial arts in community centers." Several spectators laughed. Devin's opponent stepped back, clearly uncomfortable with the interruption, but unwilling to challenge the champion. "Your stance is all wrong," Vance declared. suddenly seizing Devon's shoulders and forcefully repositioning him. "This is the proper tiger guard position in our tradition." The physical contact crossed a line. From the judge's table, Master Tanaka stood up. "Champion Reed, this behavior is essential to preserving standards," Vance interrupted. "Would you have us dilute generations of knowledge?" He maintained his grip on Devon's shoulders, fingers digging in. "Perhaps our young friend would benefit from proper instruction?" Devon remained still under Vance's hands, his expression unchanged. "In fact," Vance continued, releasing Devon with a small shove, "perhaps a demonstration would be educational for everyone. Since you've made it to the preliminaries with your community center training, perhaps you'd appreciate the opportunity to learn from a true master." The implication hung in the air. Devon looked directly at Vance for the first time since their initial encounter. "Perhaps Mr. Reed would prefer to test my skills himself, rather than simply dismissing them." The question, delivered with calm sincerity rather than challenge, created a ripple of surprise through the audience. Someone in the back let out a low whistle. Vance's eyes narrowed. "You want a lesson from the master himself? In front of everyone?" He laughed, the sound sharp and dismissive. "Your funeral, kid." Devon nodded once. "I would be honored by the opportunity." The crowd's reaction was mixed, some excited by the prospect of seeing the champion in action against the upstart, others visibly uncomfortable with the public humiliation they sensed was coming. A few spectators exchanged troubled glances, the atmosphere shifting from entertainment to something more unsettling. "The boy has courage, if not sense," someone remarked from the sidelines. Master Tanaka had remained standing, his weathered face unreadable. He slowly sat back down, but his gaze never left Devon's face. The tournament director cleared his throat, clearly caught off guard by the unexpected development. After a brief, hurried consultation with the judges, he addressed the gathered crowd. "Ladies and gentlemen, an unusual but not unprecedented situation has arisen." His voice carried the practiced neutrality of someone navigating delicate protocol. "Champion Reed has invoked the tradition of the honor match." A buzz of excitement rippled through the audience. Many leaned forward in their seats, while others whispered explanations to confused newcomers. "For those unfamiliar with our traditions," the director continued, "the honor match dates back to the founding of our art. When questions of legitimacy or proper representation arise, two practitioners may engage in formal demonstration to resolve the matter." An assistant appeared, carrying an ornate wooden box inlaid with mother of pearl. The director opened it reverently, revealing an aged parchment scroll. Per tradition, both participants must clearly understand the stakes. He unrolled the scroll carefully. "The honor match is not merely exhibition. It carries formal consequences according to our oldest customs." Vance stepped forward, his posture commanding. "The loser must kneel before the winner, publicly acknowledge their inferior understanding of the art, and relinquish any titles or claims to lineage knowledge." The director nodded. "These are the traditional terms. With one addition," Vance added. "When I win, the boy must also admit his false pretense and agree never to compete in any recognized tournament again." His smile was razor-thin. "To protect the integrity of our traditions." A few gasps emerged from the crowd. Even by the standards of the honor match, these were unusually harsh terms. All eyes turned to Devon, expecting hesitation or protest. Instead, the teenager simply nodded. "I accept." The lack of negotiation visibly unsettled Vance, whose smile faltered momentarily before returning with renewed confidence. "Then it's settled," the director declared, though uncertainty colored his tone. He gestured to the scroll. "According to tradition, both participants will sign the formal contract." The signing ceremony proceeded with ceremonial gravity. The scroll was placed on a small lacquered table. First Vance, then Devon, signed their names with a traditional brush pen. Following custom, each pressed their right thumb to an ink pad and placed their print beside their signature. The blood thumbprint is symbolic now, the director explained, though historically it was quite literal. Devon's calm throughout the procedure seemed to increasingly irritate Vance, whose movements became more pronounced, almost theatrical, as if trying to impress upon the teenager the seriousness of what was transpiring. "The honor match will conclude tomorrow's events," announced the director, rolling the scroll and returning it to its box. "Immediately preceding the championship finals." "Perfect," Vance said loudly. "Everyone will be here to witness it." He leaned closer to Devon. "Do you understand what's at stake, boy? Everything. Your future, your dignity, all gone tomorrow." Devon met his gaze steadily. "I understand perfectly what my father lost to you 20 years ago. Tomorrow is about much more than a title." Something flickered across Vance's face, confusion, perhaps a moment of uncertainty, before he turned away without response, rejoining his students who immediately surrounded him with eager attention. As the crowd dispersed, Master Tanaka approached Devon quietly. The elderly judge moved with the careful precision of age, yet his eyes remained sharp and clear. "Young man," he said, his voice low, "I feel I should warn you about honoring the true way." Devon looked at him, waiting. "There is honor in respect," Tanaka continued, "but also in truth. Choose which you will defend tomorrow wisely." With that cryptic statement, he bowed slightly and walked away. Devon stood alone in the center of the tournament floor, the signed contract binding him to a confrontation that suddenly seemed to carry the weight of decades. The preparation area emptied as competitors and spectators dispersed for the evening. Devon remained, sitting cross-legged in a corner of the locker room. The fluorescent lights hummed overhead, casting harsh shadows across his face as he breathed deeply, rhythmically. From his bag, he removed the worn photograph he'd glanced at earlier. Now, alone, he studied it intently. The image showed a younger man, clearly his father standing proud in traditional GI, a small trophy in hand. The resemblance between them was striking. The same determined eyes, the same composed posture. Devon traced the outline of his father's face with his fingertip. "First step done, Dad," he whispered. His mind drifted back through the years, memories surfacing like bubbles in still water. 20 years earlier, James Wilson had been a rising star in the martial arts community. Self-taught initially, he had refined his knowledge through dedicated study and practice, eventually earning recognition for his exceptional skill and understanding of the art's deepest principles. The tournament that year, this same Golden Dragon tournament, was to be his breakthrough into the highest echelons of recognition. Devon remembered the stories, told and retold during evening practices at their small apartment, then later at the community center his father had established to bring martial arts to underserved youth in East Side. "Your father was magnificent," his mother had often said. "He moved like water powerful but adaptable, never forcing, always finding the natural path." But then came the semifinal match against young Vance Reed, an aggressive competitor from a wealthy dojo with political connections to the tournament organizers. What should have been James Wilson's crowning achievement became his downfall. Devon closed his eyes, his father's voice echoing from those late-night conversations. He used illegal techniques, strikes, to pressure points that are forbidden in competition. When I scored a clear point, it was called invalid. When I blocked legally, I was penalized for excessive contact. The defeat itself wasn't what destroyed James Wilson. It was what came after the public humiliation, the accusations of improper training, the whispers that followed him. Doors that had been opening suddenly closed. Students drifted away from his small dojo, parents unwilling to entrust their children to an instructor whose legitimacy had been so publicly questioned. Depression followed, then financial struggle. The community center program became his father's sole focus, his way of preserving what he believed about martial arts, that its true value lay in building character, not collecting trophies. Never let someone else define your worth, Devon. his father had told him repeatedly during those difficult years. The true path isn't about recognition, it's about alignment with principles that endure. When James Wilson died 3 years ago, his health broken by stress and disappointment, 15-year-old Devin made a promise at his bedside. He would restore his father's honor, not for vengeance, but for truth. Devin opened his eyes, returning to the present moment. From a hidden compartment in his bag, he removed a small, leather-bound book, its pages yellowed with age, the binding cracked and worn. Carefully, he opened it to reveal hand-drawn illustrations of martial arts techniques, annotated in faded ink. The book looked centuries old because it was. This was the original text of the Shadow Palm lineage, the authentic manuscript that documented the art in its purest form, before commercialization and politics had corrupted its transmission. His father had received it from his teacher, who had preserved it through wars and cultural revolutions, ensuring the true knowledge survived. What Vance Reed taught and claimed to master was a diluted version, modified for competitions and public appeal. He couldn't know the deeper principles contained in these fragile pages. After his father's death, Devin had sought out the one person who could help him master the authentic techniques, Master Zhang, the elderly teacher who had gone into seclusion in the mountains after becoming disillusioned with the politics of modern martial arts competitions. For 2 years, Devin had trained in secret, learning the true Shadow Palm techniques that few living practitioners had ever witnessed. Devin practiced a breathing sequence now, his hands moving through a subtle pattern that would be unrecognizable to most observers as a martial technique. It was the foundation of the Shadow Palm, not the external power that Vance demonstrated, but the internal energy cultivation that made the style truly effective. A noise at the door interrupted his meditation. Master Tanaka stood there, watching with knowing eyes. "I thought I recognized that movement pattern," the elderly judge said quietly. "The Shadow Palm technique. Your father was the last to master it before." He paused, entering the room fully and closing the door. "Be careful, young one. Vance will stop at nothing to protect his false legacy." Devin carefully returned the book to his bag. "You knew my father." It wasn't a question, but Tanaka nodded. "I was outvoted during that match 20 years ago. Politics and tradition are not always the same thing, though many pretend they are." He studied Devin's face. "You move exactly like him." "My father died believing he had failed the true way," Devin said, touching the photograph once more. "Tomorrow isn't about me, it's about the truth." Tanaka's expression softened slightly. "I will maintain my oath as judge, but know this. True mastery reveals itself, even to those who refuse to see." He moved toward the door, then paused. "Your secret is safe with me, but tomorrow it will belong to everyone." After the elderly judge departed, Devin returned to his meditation. Tomorrow would require perfect control, not just of technique, but of emotion. The path to restoration wasn't through hatred or revenge, but through the purest expression of the art itself. By noon the following day, the tournament hall had filled beyond capacity. Word of the unusual honor match had spread rapidly, drawing martial arts enthusiasts from neighboring communities. Extra chairs had been hastily arranged, yet people still stood 3 deep along the walls. The air felt charged, thick with anticipation and the mingled scents of excitement cologne, coffee, and the distinct aroma of the ceremonial incense burning in copper dishes at the corners of the main competition area. The central mat had been specially prepared for the occasion. Traditional red-tasseled ropes defined its boundaries, and ancient calligraphy banners hung on each wall: honor, discipline, wisdom, truth. Tournament officials moved with heightened formality, conscious of the historical significance that such matches held in their tradition. A drum sounded 3 times, signaling the ceremony's beginning. The crowd fell silent as the tournament director stepped to the center. "Today we witness the ancient tradition of the honor match," he announced, voice carrying to the farthest corners. "A sacred opportunity to distinguish true understanding from mere appearance." From the eastern entrance, Vance Reed emerged to enthusiastic applause. He wore formal demonstration attire, a black silk gi with gold embroidery depicting dragons along its edges. The 5 championship medallions displayed prominently on a red sash across his chest. 6 senior students accompanied him, each carrying an element of traditional weaponry that represented aspects of their lineage. Vance stepped onto the mat and performed the formal entry ritual, a flowing sequence of movements that showcased strength, precision, and theatrical flair. His techniques created audible wind sounds as they cut through the air, drawing appreciative murmurs from many spectators. He concluded with a perfect split, arms extended in the tiger crane position that had become his signature pose in promotional materials. "Champion Reed honors us with the Dragon Tiger entry form," the director commented, "a demonstration of our art's highest external expression." The applause was immediate and enthusiastic. Several people rose to their feet. Vance acknowledged them with practiced humility, bowing in each direction before taking his position at the northern edge of the mat. The contrast when Devon entered couldn't have been more pronounced. He came alone, wearing a simple white gi with no markings or decorations. No belt indicated his rank. He carried nothing, his hands empty at his sides. His entry involved no elaborate demonstration, just a respectful bow to the judges and a simple centering breath before he took his position at the southern edge. "Mr. Wilson honors the principle of simplicity," the director noted, though his tone suggested uncertainty about whether this constituted proper protocol. A few scattered claps sounded, quickly fading to uncomfortable silence. Someone whispered loudly enough to be heard in nearby rows, "Did he even warm up?" Master Tanaka, seated at the center of the judges' panel, watched Devon with unwavering attention. The other judges leaned together, exchanging quiet comments behind raised hands. The director raised his arm. "Per tradition, before combat commences, each participant may demonstrate their understanding of the art." Vance stepped forward immediately. "I will perform the 5-element sequence, the protected knowledge of our lineage, passed down through 28 generations of recognized masters." What followed was undeniably impressive, a flowing demonstration of techniques that built from simple strikes to acrobatic combinations, each movement executed with power and precision. Vance moved like a hurricane across the mat, his techniques punctuated with sharp ki shouts that echoed off the walls. The crowd responded with appropriate awe, gasping at particularly difficult sequences. When he finished, breathing controlled despite the exertion, the audience erupted in applause. Vance bowed deeply, first to the judges, then to the audience, noticeably less so toward Devon. "Mr. Wilson," the director called, "your demonstration." Devon stepped forward and simply performed the first basic form, the most elementary sequence taught to beginners. His movements were precise but utterly without embellishment, focused entirely on fundamental principles of balance, breathing, and alignment. What stood out wasn't showmanship but an almost preternatural calmness, each position held with complete stability, transitions between movements seamless as water flowing. The audience's response was confused. Some laughed quietly, assuming they were witnessing nervousness or limited knowledge. Others frowned, perhaps sensing something they couldn't quite articulate. "Is he mocking us?" someone asked loudly. Master Tanaka's expression remained inscrutable, his eyes never leaving Devon's form. The demonstration complete, the director moved to the center again. "The honor match will proceed in 3 rounds, following traditional rules. Victory may come through point accumulation or clear demonstration of superior technique. Judges will evaluate according to ancient standards of form, power, control, and spiritual alignment." As the competitors took their starting positions, Vance's confident smile contrasted sharply with Devon's calm neutrality. "Begin," called the director, stepping back quickly. Vance attacked immediately, closing distance with an aggressive combination of strikes aimed at Devon's midsection. The movements were technically excellent, fast, powerful, precisely targeted. Yet Devon simply wasn't there when the attacks arrived. With minimal movement, he shifted just enough that each strike passed harmlessly through empty space. This pattern continued for nearly a minute. Vance pressing forward with increasingly complex attacks, Devon neutralizing them with seemingly effortless adjustments of position and timing. No counterattacks, no offensive techniques, just perfect defensive awareness. "Fight back properly," Vance demanded between combinations. "Stop mocking me with these basics." Devon maintained his composed expression, responding only with precise execution of fundamental techniques. When he finally countered, it was with the simplest of movements, a basic palm block that subtly redirected Vance's energy, causing him to slightly overextend. That small overextension revealed a critical flaw in Vance's signature technique, a weight distribution issue that compromised its structural integrity. The insight was visible only to the most experienced observers, including Master Tanaka, whose eyebrow raised fractionally. Vance recovered quickly, but his expression had changed. The confidence was giving way to confusion, then the first hints of genuine frustration. His next sequence came faster, harder, with subtle variations that bent the competition rules strikes that targeted vulnerable points, joint manipulations disguised as standard blocks. Devon's adaptation remained perfect. His defensive pattern shifted imperceptibly, always just beyond Vance's reach or timing. Still, he launched no significant counterattack, seemingly content to let the engagement reveal itself naturally. The first round ended with neither competitor having scored decisively. As they returned to their positions, whispers spread through the audience. The expected dominance hadn't materialized. Instead, something strange was unfolding. A contest that didn't follow the anticipated script. "That's not anger in his movements," observed an elderly practitioner near the front. "That's discipline I haven't seen in 20 years. The second round began with Vance visibly recalibrating his approach. He circled more patiently, studying Devon's positioning with narrowed eyes. When he attacked, his combinations were more controlled, more strategic, testing defenses rather than trying to overwhelm them. Devon responded with subtle adjustments to his own rhythm, maintaining the defensive integrity that had frustrated Vance's initial approach. For several exchanges, they moved in an almost hypnotic pattern of attack and evasion, like two opposing currents in the same stream. Then Vance found what he thought was an opening, a momentary shift in Devon's weight distribution during a pivoting defense. He committed fully to a penetrating strike, only to discover the opening was a deliberate drawing technique. Devon's counter wasn't flashy, just fundamentally perfect, a simple palm redirection that used Vance's own momentum to unbalance him. For the first time, Vance nearly fell. He recovered with athletic skill, but the near stumble was visible to everyone. A murmur spread through the crowd. The champion's composure cracked further. His next attacks contained increasingly obvious rule violations. A finger strike toward Devon's eyes disguised as a conventional attack, a sweep targeting the knee joint with potentially injurious force. Devon's response remained measured, his defenses adapting without escalating the dangerous elements Vance was introducing. But now, occasionally, he added simple counter techniques, nothing flashy, just perfectly timed basic strikes that scored clean technical points. By the final minute of the second round, the mood in the arena had transformed. The audience watched in growing disbelief as the expected dominance inverted itself. The champion was breathing heavily, movements becoming less precise as frustration affected his technique. The newcomer remained composed, his breathing controlled, movements economical and precise. The third round began with Vance abandoning pretense. His attacks became overtly aggressive, prioritizing power over technique, seeking to overwhelm through sheer force and intimidation. When those failed, he resorted to increasingly obvious violations, grabbing Devon's GI, attempting to trap fingers, even a disguised strike toward the throat. Through it all, Devon maintained his disciplined approach. His defense never faltered, his counters remained minimal, but precisely effective. More telling was his complete emotional control. No reaction to provocations. No response to Vance's increasingly desperate tactics. The audience had gone completely silent. The only sounds the impact of techniques and Vance's increasingly labored breathing. Even those who had initially laughed at Devon's simple demonstration now watched with undisguised fascination. Something extraordinary was happening, though few could articulate exactly what they were witnessing. Master Tanaka sat forward slightly, his usual impassivity giving way to the faintest suggestion of a nod. The final minute of the match approached. Vance Reed, 5-time champion and self-proclaimed guardian of tradition, stood breathing heavily, his perfect appearance now disheveled. Sweat darkened his ornate guy, and a muscle twitched visibly at his temple. His calculated composure had disintegrated into raw frustration. "Enough of this!" Vance growled, loud enough for the front rows to hear. "Time to end your charade." He reset his stance, centering himself with visible effort. The audience sensed a shift in energy. Vance was preparing something significant. Competitors from his dojo straightened in their seats, recognizing the preparation for his legendary Dragon's Tail technique, the signature move that had won him 3 championships, supposedly unblockable when executed properly. "He's going to use it," whispered one of Vance's senior students. "The boy doesn't stand a chance." Vance began the elaborate setup sequence, his movements regaining their earlier precision as he committed fully to his ultimate technique. The Dragon's Tail required perfect timing, a complex feint followed by an explosive circular strike that attacked from an unexpected angle. Its power came from complete commitment, the practitioner channeling their entire body's energy into a single decisive moment. Devon watched, his expression unchanged, his breathing steady. As Vance launched the technique, committing his full force to the attack, Devon made a single, almost imperceptible shift in his stance. What happened next occurred so quickly that many spectators would later disagree about the details. As Vance's attack reached its culmination, Devon executed a perfect shadow palm counter, not the modified version taught in commercial dojos, but the authentic technique preserved in the ancient manuscript. His hand moved in a precise pattern, intercepting Vance's energy pathway rather than his physical strike. The result was extraordinary. Vance's own force reversed against him, his momentum suddenly having nowhere to go. He staggered backward, balance completely compromised, eyes widening in shock. More telling than the physical reaction was his expression, the sudden recognition, the impossible realization. "That technique!" Vance gasped, steadying himself. "It can't be. Only the true bloodline of—" His voice trailed off as understanding dawned. Devon stood perfectly balanced, his hand still extended in the distinctive position that concluded the authentic shadow palm technique, a position illustrated in the ancient texts, but absent from the modified versions taught in modern dojos. The silence in the arena was absolute. Even those who didn't fully comprehend the technical significance could feel the seismic shift that had occurred. Something fundamental had been revealed. "Impossible," Vance whispered, but the doubt in his voice betrayed his crumbling certainty. Devon lowered his hand slowly, then extended it toward Vance, not in attack, but in a gesture of reconciliation. "My father tried to show you the same mercy 20 years ago. History doesn't have to repeat itself." For a moment, it seemed Vance might accept the offered hand. A flicker of recognition, perhaps even remorse, crossed his face. Then his expression hardened. With a roar of denial, he launched himself forward in a desperate, rule-breaking attack aimed directly at Devon's throat. Devon didn't counter. He simply wasn't there. With minimal movement, he shifted aside, allowing Vance's wild attack to pass harmlessly by and allowing the champion's own momentum to carry him forward until he lost balance completely. Vance fell hard, his knee twisting awkwardly beneath him. The sound, a sharp, unpleasant pop, echoed through the silent arena. He collapsed to the mat, clutching his injured joint, his face contorted with the twin pains of physical injury and public defeat. The match was over. Not through any damaging attack by Devon, but through Vance's own desperation, his own refusal to accept what had become increasingly obvious to everyone watching. Master Tanaka rose slowly from his seat, the other judges following his lead. No formal announcement was needed. The outcome was written in Vance Reed's collapse and Devin Wilson's calm, unwavering stance. The tournament hall remained eerily silent as medical attendants helped Vance to a seated position. His knee injury, while painful, appeared not to be severe, a strain rather than a tear. The physical recovery would be straightforward. The recovery of his reputation presented a far more challenging prospect. The tournament director approached, carrying the ceremonial honor match scroll. Tradition demanded a formal conclusion public acknowledgement of the outcome, regardless of how uncomfortable that might be for the defeated. According to ancient custom, the director announced, his voice subdued, the honor match has concluded. The formal ceremony of recognition must now take place. Vance's face contorted, emotions warring visibly humiliation, anger, and something deeper, more complex. He remained seated on the mat, one hand still protectively covering his injured knee, the other clenched in a tight fist against the floor. Champion Reed, the director continued, following protocol despite the tension, tradition requires your acknowledgement. A murmur rippled through the crowd. This was the moment of public consequence, the price of Vance's earlier confidence and harsh conditions. By his own terms, he was required to kneel, though his injury now made that difficult, admit inferiority, relinquish his titles, and acknowledge false claims to lineage knowledge. Vance's hesitation stretched uncomfortably. Several of his students looked away, unable to watch their master's humiliation. Others leaned forward, curiosity overcoming empathy. The silence grew heavier with each passing second. Devin stepped forward. His voice, when he spoke, carried clearly through the hushed arena. Before we proceed, I should properly introduce myself. He bowed formally to the judges' panel. My name is Devin Wilson. I am the son of Master James Wilson. The name triggered immediate recognition among the older participants. Whispers spread rapidly through the crowd as those who remembered explained to those who didn't. 20 years ago, my father competed in this tournament. His understanding of our art was questioned, his character attacked, his legitimacy denied. Devin's voice remained measured, without bitterness. Today wasn't about winning a match. It was about restoring truth. From his GI, Devin withdrew a folded document yellowed with age, its edges worn. He handed it to the tournament director. This is the original certificate of lineage, signed by Grand Master Zhang, acknowledging my father as the 19th generation heir to the authentic Shadow Palm tradition. The director examined the document, then passed it to Master Tanaka, whose hands trembled slightly as he verified its authenticity. The techniques you just witnessed, Devin continued, addressing the entire assembly rather than just Vance, come from the original manuscript of our art, not the modified versions that prioritize competition success over authentic principles. From the sidelines, one of Devin's supporters brought forward the leather-bound book he had meditated with the previous evening. Master Tanaka accepted it reverently, turning its brittle pages with the care of someone handling a sacred relic. The Shadow Palm lineage has never been about bloodlines or schools or trophies, Devin said. It has been preserved by those committed to its true principles. Harmony over dominance, wisdom over power, character over reputation. Vance stared at the ancient text, recognition and disbelief warring in his expression. That's the original manuscript, he whispered, his voice barely audible. I was told it was lost, centuries ago. It was protected, Devin corrected gently, by those who understood its true value. Vance's demeanor transformed. The remaining defiance drained away, replaced by a complex mixture of shame and revelation. With visible effort, he shifted his position, moving into as close to a formal kneeling posture as his injured knee would allow. I knew, he admitted, his voice cracking. I knew 20 years ago that your father's technique came from a more authentic source than mine. I could feel it during our match. He lowered his gaze to the mat. But admitting that would have meant acknowledging everything I'd built was founded on incomplete understanding. My teachers had only fragments, commercialized versions. When your father demonstrated the true form, I couldn't bear to see what it revealed about my own training. A shocked murmur spread through Vance's students. Their champion, their exemplar of traditional values, was confessing to knowingly perpetuating falsehood. I've spent 20 years defending a lie because I couldn't face my own inadequacy, Vance continued, his voice strengthening with the release of long-carried deception. The true dishonor was never in losing. It was in how I won, and what I did afterward. He reached for his championship medals, removing them from his neck with unsteady hands. These were earned through skill, but not through honor. He placed them on the mat. I forfeit them freely. Then, from within his gi, Vance withdrew something unexpected, a small, tarnished medal. This belonged to your father. I kept it after he was disqualified on my false accusations. It should return to its rightful owner. Devon accepted the medal, examining the inscription that bore his father's name. For the first time, his composed expression wavered, emotion briefly visible before he regained control. Master Tanaka stood addressing the assembly. Today we have witnessed not just an honor match, but a restoration of historical truth. He bowed deeply to Devon. The council acknowledges Devon Wilson as the legitimate heir to the Shadow Palm lineage, with all rights and responsibilities that entails. The formal pronouncement rippled through the crowd, many spectators still processing the dramatic revelations they had witnessed. Some of Vance's former supporters looked confused, even betrayed. Others appeared thoughtful, reassessing long-held assumptions. Devon stepped forward, offering his hand once more to Vance. This time, Vance accepted it, allowing Devon to help him to his feet. True mastery isn't about who your ancestors were or what you look like, Devon said, his voice carrying to the farthest corners of the now silent arena. It's about honoring the spirit of the art through how you treat others. My father never sought vengeance or exclusive recognition. He opened a community center, making these teachings available to anyone willing to approach them with sincerity. Vance nodded slowly. I would like to learn the authentic form, properly this time, without ego. The community center doors are always open, Devon replied. In the following weeks, the martial arts community buzzed with the story of what had transpired at the Golden Dragon tournament. Some focused on the technical revelations, others on the dramatic personal narrative. Attendance at the Wilson Community Center tripled, with practitioners from across the country seeking authentic instruction. More surprising to many was the occasional presence of Vance Reed, now without his championship titles, but with something more valuable: humility and genuine studentship. He began assisting with classes, his technical knowledge still valuable when guided by proper principles. 6 months later, at a regional exhibition, Devon and Vance performed a demonstration together, a symbolic public reconciliation that emphasized the art's ability to transform not just bodies, but character. Their performance illustrated how different paths could ultimately serve the same deeper principles when approached with sincerity. The Shadow Palm lineage, nearly lost through politics and commercialization, found new life, not as an exclusive secret guarded by a few, but as a tradition kept vibrant through ethical teaching and respect for its authentic spirit. Devon Wilson had restored not just his father's personal honor, but the integrity of an art form that transcended individual reputation. Some people train their bodies for decades but never master the first lesson, Devon told a group of new students, Vance nodding in agreement beside him. True strength begins with humility. If this tale of redemption and authentic martial arts wisdom resonated with you, take a moment to hit that like button and subscribe to Beat Stories for more powerful narratives that deliver justice with a punch. Every week, we bring you carefully crafted stories of underdogs rising, bullies facing consequences, and powerful moments of truth that will leave you satisfied and inspired. Hit subscribe and turn on notifications so you never miss our weekly uploads of satisfying comeuppance stories that prove respect and dignity always win in the end. This is Beat Stories, where justice is served one story at a time.
They say it's just how the world works. We say, change it. At Beat Stories, we capture the exact moment when justice meets its match. Subscribe if you're tired of the same excuses wrapped in different uniforms.